Okay, good morning. So, I am just going to give the algorithm a little bit of time to kick in. And before I even get started, yeah, we're going to talk about 7 things that agents don't tell their agents, or but they probably should, or how interpret it how you want. 7 things that real estate agents want to tell their sellers, but most don't. These are things that we probably want to get off our chest, but we don't for whatever reason. Um, I'm looking at the comments. We're on Facebook Live, we're on Instagram Live, and we are YouTube Live right now as well. Now, for those of you who don't know, I am committing to go live at least once a day on all of my social media platforms. And here is some interesting statistics that I have discovered after doing this for the last week. 45%. Hey, Rob, I'm sorry that I didn't respond to you last time. I couldn't because I didn't see the comments. 45% of the people that are participating in my lives and in my social media feed right now, as I do these things on a daily basis now, 45% of them are from my followers. 55 to 60% of them, right, are people that do not follow me. So what that tells me is that the algorithm is pushing this content out. And a lot of you, I appreciate you participating. I appreciate you watching it and commenting and being here with me while I do this and on my journey. But you're not subscribers. So a lot of the people who are watching this, believe it or not, over half of them are not subscribers. So if you could do me a huge favor, I would be very appreciative if I could get a like, a heart, a follow, or a subscribe. Right now, if you're watching this on YouTube, there's also the bell icon. If you could be so kind as to click on the bell icon, that'll alert you every time I go live, and it'll also alert you anytime I upload new content that I'm creating and curating for you. So I'm just going to give the algorithm just a little bit more time just to kick in and let people know that we are live. Today we're going to be talking about the 7 things that agents want to tell their sellers, but most don't, right? And we're going to go into why most don't in a little bit. But there are things that, as agents, we sometimes want to get off our chest, and some of us just don't, are either too scared to express what it is that we want to say, or we don't want to lose our client, right? So let's dive right in. 7 things agents want to tell their sellers, but most don't. First one, commissions are negotiable. Now, look, this is very, very well known, and over the last year and a half to 2 years, with all of the lawsuits that have been going on over commissions and sharing of commissions and cooperating brokers, there's been a lot of talk about commissions and steering as a result of commissions, and statistics have already indicated that commissions have largely been unaffected by these recent lawsuits. Right, people are still earning the same commissions as they were earning prior to the lawsuit, and many people are just saying it's much ado about nothing. However, it does bring to light the fact that commissions are negotiable. That's just the reality of it. And commissions have always been negotiable. So anytime we're talking to a client, anytime we're talking to a seller, anytime we're talking to a buyer, commissions are fully negotiable. Now, does that mean that a particular agent deserves or has the right to command a higher commission? Absolutely. Absolutely. That goes with all professions, right? Not just in real estate. That goes in all professions. There's going to be certain um, services, there's going to be certain products, there's going to be certain professions that obviously are going to command a higher fee. And the best of the best are going to be able to command those higher fees because they're good at what they do. And our business is absolutely no different. Yes, commissions are negotiable, but does that mean that the agent has to negotiate or lower their fee or potentially lose a client? Sure, that's just a part of doing business. And our business is not unlike any other type of business. Okay, so the first thing is commissions are negotiable. Okay, second thing is, to the sellers, you don't want to be at the open houses or during showings. Okay, this is something that I think a lot of agents would like to tell their sellers, and some of them have no problem telling their sellers this, but a lot of sellers, listen, you don't want to be there when we're doing the open houses or doing showings. Now, I know that in some cases, there are some sellers that for whatever reason physically cannot leave the home. I get that. But if you are a seller that can escape during an open house, that can escape during during a showing, you're probably not going to want to be there, right? Because number one, the buyers and the agent that is showing the home, it may be the listing agent that's showing the home, and maybe a buyer's agent that's showing the home. The buyers are walking through the property. And when you're a seller, it's kind of like having a salesperson, hover around you as you're going around a retail store, and you're looking for something to shop. So if you're walking to a store, a salesperson walks up to you. First thing they say is, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller." Excuse me. They say something along the lines of, my brain went to real estate instantly. "Hey, is there something I could help you out with?" Immediately we respond with, "No, I'm just browsing." Right? That's what every normal person does. Well, same thing goes for us showing a house. So when we're showing a house, or when a buyer's agent is showing a house and you've got a seller that's just hovering the entire time, and they're hanging out in a particular room, it doesn't really give the buyer or the buyer's agent the flexibility to have candid conversations with the buyer, especially if they want to come in there and they want to make some modifications to the home. So some comments that buyers are going to make, like, "I wouldn't put that there, I wouldn't do this way, I wouldn't paint that tone, I tear that wall down, I don't like this." And for a seller who lives in the home, for a seller who has invested money, time, emotions, experiences in the home, for the seller that has all of this wrapped up into their home and invested in their home, when they're hearing a buyer coming in talking about all the things that they're going to do to the home and how they shouldn't have it, the house shouldn't be this way, and how they're going to remodel this and they're going to redo that, and the condition of this is that, and the taste in color is poor, and they don't like those drapes, and the hardwood floors look horrible. For a buyer that is making those candid comments with their buyer's agent at the time, as a seller, you don't want to be there for that. Right. And I've had some sellers that have overheard buyers make those kind of comments, and the buyers aren't doing anything wrong. They're just being brutally honest about how they feel when they come take a look at the house. And if they're doing that with their agent, they're doing that, hoping that they're doing it in privacy. But when a seller is around, they're not really going to be able to share those real emotions with their agent, and they may still want the home, but their first experience is one of them being worried about a seller, hanging around, listening to every word that they say, and they don't want to offend a seller that they're trying to submit an offer on either. So when there's open houses and when there's showings, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you probably don't want to be around. You shouldn't be around, and you don't want to take offense to any of the things that the buyer might say. Okay, let's talk about remodeling. I like this one. So when we are working with a seller who has remodeled a home, okay, it's very important to note that having a house that is remodeled, rehabbed, flipped, completely new electrical, completely new plumbing, smart home, tech, all of that stuff, that does not mean new construction. Okay, very, very important. Now, some sellers know this already. Some sellers are very well educated, and so they understand that, like, yes, a rehabbed home does not mean new construction, but there are some sellers that, for whatever reason, they may have remodeled their home, they may have rehabbed their home, they may have brought it up to 2025 standards. Everything is brand new except the year built. The year built isn't brand new. The year built doesn't change unless they go over there and they get new permits, they demolish the entire structure, they get a new certificate of occupancy, they get a brand new built. In that case, then it is brand new construction. But if it's just a home that has been remodeled, it's just a home that has been rehabbed, it's just a home that has been brought up to 2025 standards, then we are not going to be able to, as agents, we are not going to be able to, as buyer's agents, the appraisers aren't going to be able to compare that home to newly constructed homes. Okay, so this is very, very important. So as agents, sometimes we want to have these conversations with our sellers. But, some agents, again, sometimes it's lack of communication, lack of preparation, lack of coaching, and the inability to express that rehabbed does not mean new construction. And so when we are pricing a home, we are not going to compare that remodeled home to brand new construction. We are going to compare that remodeled home to other remodeled homes that were built within 20 years of when that home was originally constructed. Very, very important. Custom made for you is not custom made for somebody else. I love this one too, right? So when a seller says that I had this cabinetry custom made, I had this countertop custom made, I had this door custom made, these windows are all custom made, these drapes are custom made, my closet, my walk-in closet is custom made, everything is custom made. Well, that's fantastic, and I appreciate that all of these items were custom made and that you've invested so much time in creating all of these custom made details in your home. The pride of ownership is clearly evident, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. But having these items custom made for you, having these items custom made to your tastes, does not mean that it is going to be custom made and custom appreciated by the next buyer. So this is something that I think a lot of agents have a difficult time conveying to their sellers. When a seller is telling them about the property and all of the wonderful things that they've done and all the custom details that they've put, the custom paneling, the custom wainscoting, the custom chandeliers, the custom marble Porsche, custom Carrera marble floors. When they talk about all these things that they've done, to their liking, even though it's custom, even though it may be the upper tier material, it may be some of the best material out there, and it may be done in the most luxurious and most professional way, and it looks good. That doesn't necessarily translate into somebody else's tastes. And so when someone says to me, this was custom made, I did all of this custom made, that doesn't necessarily mean that someone else is going to appreciate it. And this is something that a lot of sellers have a difficult time grasping with as well. Does it make the home potentially more sellable? Does it make the home potentially more attractive? Does it make the home look good when we're taking marketing photos? Look good when we're taking videos? Yes, sure. All of that stuff makes it look great. It makes it look good. But at the end of the day, if a buyer comes in and a buyer says, we're going to rehab that entire walk-in closet, to meet my taste so that it's custom made for me, then really there's very little value in what was done originally. So custom made does not mean custom for somebody else. As is sale isn't always as is. This is also something that we have to prepare sellers for. So when we're representing a seller and we're representing a property and then we get an offer from a buyer, there are many times when a seller will tell us, okay, I want to counter their offer. They just made me an offer for 1.5. I'll accept the 1.5, but I want them to understand that they are purchasing the property as is. I want an as is clause on the property. So in the counter, we may say something like the property is being sold as is, where is, buyer to do their own due diligence, buyer to do their own inspection, property sold as is. Fine. We send that counter out. Everybody is happy. They open escrow. Buyer then has their inspection period. There is still an inspection period unless it is removed. So if and most buyers will not purchase a property without an inspection period. The standard clause in our contracts, at least here in California, is that the standard inspection period is going to be about 17 days. So the buyer has 17 days to complete all of their inspections on the property. That means that at their own expense, they can pay for their termite inspection, they can pay for their sewer inspection, they can pay for the roofing inspection, they can pay for a foundation inspection, they can pay for just a general inspection that covers general stuff, all of that surface level stuff, and they can do that at their own expense. If at that time they discover some latent items, some items that were not discoverable by the naked eye, and they discover other repairs that need to be made or corrections that might need to be made to the property, then that buyer could, in theory, come back and say, hey, I'd like to have this repaired. I'd like a credit. I'd like a reduction in price. There's a whole bunch of different strategies that the buyer could use to try to renegotiate the contract, even though there was a clause in the counter that said property is sold as is. So it's very important that when we're talking to our sellers, right, that we let them know that, yes, we're selling the property as is, and we're going to try to make the buyers aware of that, but the buyer is still entitled to their inspection. And so they have one of two options. They can come back after their inspection and they can say, hey, I'd like to make these modifications, or they can say, B, I'll just walk away from the transaction. So it's entirely up to you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, but Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you did say that you wanted to sell this property in the next 30 days. You did say that you needed to relocate in the next 90 days because of a job transfer. You did say that we have to pay off some of these bills. So my question is then, do we want to really put it back on the market, renegotiate with another buyer, and hope that another buyer isn't going to discover the same things that these buyers are going to discover, have already discovered themselves, right? So yes, as is it, you can put that in the contract, we can send that out as a counter, but it doesn't always mean as is. And a lot of times sellers want to hang their hat on that and just say, that's what I said, it's as is, I'm not going to do anything. Buyer can still inspect, right? Buyer can still inspect and still come back and ask for things. And, depending on the seller situation, some sellers will just say, hey, listen, it's not worth me losing a deal over, $20,000 in repairs. Let's just go ahead and either make those repairs or we'll just give them a credit. And in some cases, we're going to be dealing with sellers that will say, hey, I told him or her that it was as is and I'm selling it as is. They can cancel the contract. And we've had clients that have done that as well too. So really just understand as is isn't always as is, and it isn't just a blanket clause that can prevent any additional negotiation in the future. Yes, overpricing makes it harder to sell. Number 6, it does. Okay, let's just clear that up. Overpricing makes it harder to sell. A lot of agents don't want to tell their seller this, but it does. It makes it harder to sell, right? Number 1, if you're grossly overpricing the property, there are some people, most buyers, that are going to look at that. They're going to look at the price and they're going to basically say that the gap between what we would offer and what they're asking is so great that it doesn't even make sense for us to go over there, look at it, and even submit an offer. So when some sellers say, hey, listen, let's just start at this price. I just want to see if anybody bites. I just want to see if anybody comes by. I just want to see if anybody responds to it. Well, we need to make sure that the seller understands that, like, look, you overpricing it, it's going to make it much more difficult to sell. And a lot of buyers are going to be so intimidated by that price that they don't even think it's going to be worth their time coming to take a look at it or submitting an offer. So you don't want to do that. That is something that should be expressed very, very early on. In addition to that, the days on the market, a lot of people have been talking about days on the market, and lately that's been a topic, at least within our profession, internally in our conversation. They're so interesting, the stuff that we talk about, days on market. Anyway, so days on the market is the number of days that the property has currently been on the market. Then there's cumulative days on the market, which is the days on the market that the property they've been trying to sell since they began advertising it. So in some cases, you've got a seller that will sell a property themselves. They'll put it on Zillow for themselves, for instance. So the days on the market starts then. Then they'll hire an agent, right? And those cumulative days on the market continue. Then what will happen is they may fire an agent, rehire another agent, and those days still continue. And so they're keeping track of all those days on the market. Well, when you overprice it and you put it on the market and those days on the market just keep accumulating, right? The cumulative days on the market, buyers can see that data and they can see that on Zillow, and they go on there and they say, oh, they've been trying to sell it at this price for the last, 120 days, and they haven't gotten any offers. So clearly it's an overpriced property. Well, what that does is it sends that message. So it makes it much more difficult to get traffic into the property, to get buyers into the property, because people have already mentally made that mental note that, hey, look, it's overpriced. It's been sitting on the market for 120 days. This isn't something that we're going to look at. Or worse yet, what will happen is that you will get buyers that will then say, oh, it's been on the market 120 days. They're probably getting desperate. Let me make them a 50% offer on their listing now. And so that is another thing that happens, is that instead of getting offers at market value, at fair market value, based on what it could potentially be worth, you end up getting, offers that are considerably lower just because it's been sitting on the market much, much longer. So yes, overpricing it does make it harder to sell, and all it does is it just frustrates everybody. It frustrates the seller, it frustrates the agents, it frustrates the buyers, it frustrates everybody in the process. So ideally, what you want to do is you just want to price it at fair market value. I understand that there are going to be some reasons that certain properties are going to be worth a little bit more based on the improvements that they've made, and that is warranted. I appreciate that and I understand that. But when you're grossly overpricing it just to test the market, just to see if the buyers are going to respond, you're doing yourself a disservice and you're making it difficult for the agent to get the property sold. But Paul, that's the agent's job. The agent should be the one stepping up and selling and getting the property sold and getting buyers in here. I don't care if it's overpriced. That's their job. They have to deal with that. Correct. But when you're making it difficult for them. So that's the equivalent of saying, hey, I'm going to go hire a personal trainer to help me work on my physique. I want to have a a six pack, and it's the personal trainer's job to help me get the six pack. Oh, and by the way, I'm just going to eat cheeseburgers and fries all day long. It's the same principle here, right? When you're putting yourself at a disadvantage, you're making it more difficult for the personal trainer to help you get that six pack. When you're grossly overpricing the property, you're making it much more difficult for the agent to be able to get the foot traffic to get in the door. Now, I'm not saying that you necessarily have to underprice it. That's not what we're saying. But fair market value, or take into account any improvements that have been made and adjusting the price for that, that makes complete sense, right? But when you grossly overprice it, you're making it more difficult for everybody. Okay, the home inspector is just doing their job. This is another thing that, as agents, we need to tell our sellers sometimes. Because what happens is that a buyer has their inspection period, as we've already covered. That inspection period, at least in our state, based on our contracts, is at standard 17 days. Can that be negotiated, renegotiated? Can that be modified on the contract? Absolutely. Can it be countered? Absolutely. But by default, it's set at 17 days. So the buyer has 17 days to complete all their inspections at their own expense. Buyer hires a home inspector. Home inspector comes to the property. Home inspector kicks the tires. Home inspector checks everything on a general level, if it's a general home inspection. And then on a more specific, on a more micro level, if you're hiring, a foundation expert, a roofing expert, an AC, HVAC expert, electrical engineer expert, all of these different experts that you could then hire, which add additional expense to its inspections. When the buyer comes back, they get their home inspection, especially first-time home buyers. Okay, this happens a lot when it's first-time home buyers, and at least in Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, there are plenty of homes that are turn-of-the-century homes. They're older homes in LA, right? And so when these new home buyers get their home inspector and they get their home inspection report, the home inspection is going to list all of the items that the home inspector is going to recommend be addressed, or that an expert in that specific field come out and do additional inspections on. So a first-time home buyer typically tends to ask for these items to be repaired. They're looking for this to be repaired, and then they ask the seller to either make those repairs or to offer them some type of a credit in the form of a price reduction or closing costs, whatever that might be. Now, a lot of times sellers get really, really upset with the home inspectors, and really they're shooting the messenger. The home inspector is just going out there and they're just making note of these items and recommending that these items be reviewed or further researched. And so a lot of times the sellers are upset because they're saying, how could he? There's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with the recess lighting. There's nothing wrong with the plumbing. That leak isn't there. And they'll really get very, very upset over the home inspection report. Listen, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, the home inspector's just doing their job. That's all. They're just a messenger. They came in, they're just noting it. If there's stains on the ceiling, they're going to note it, right? If there's rat droppings in the attic, they're going to note it. If there's a leak on the hose outside in the backyard, they're going to note it. So, don't take such offense to it. It is what it is. That's what they discovered. And it's not like they're just discovering this off the top of their head. They're documenting it and they're taking photos of it and they're putting it in their report. So, as agents, sometimes we have to suffer the wrath of a seller getting upset and getting really PO'd with us because the home inspection report, marked off all of these items that probably should be researched, and how dare he or she, say those things about my beautiful widow home, right? These are the things that happen. Okay, so agents, again, this is something that a lot of agents don't prep their seller for, and so later on they're dealing with that backlash. The home inspector is just doing their job. I appreciate that. Thank you for that compliment, Nick. It's not easy. It is a lot of work. I have an excellent partner, and my wife does a great job, and she holds it down on her own. So for those of you who don't know, I am a real estate broker and a real estate agent. If you have a property that you are considering selling, even if it's not in California, I am licensed in California, Florida, and Nevada. Even if it's not in those states, let me know. We have an amazing network of real estate agents that work with us. If you're thinking about selling your home, by all means, reach out to me. Send me a direct message. My social media handles are all at Talk to Paul. DOTCOM. So it's at talktopaul.com spelled out. And we can schedule a consultation meeting and discuss how we can get you into your next home or how we can help you get that home sold. All right. I appreciate everybody participating. Again, I said this at the beginning, but what we've discovered, having done this now for the last week to 2 weeks, what we've discovered is that more than 50, almost 60% of the people that watch these views and watch my reels and watch these lives, more than 60% of them are not subscribers. They're not followers. They're not fans. If you could be so kind as to give me a quick heart, that would be amazing. If you would subscribe, that would be amazing. If you're on YouTube, please click the bell icon because that way you'll get alerted every time that I go live and every time I upload new content. All right, everybody, have a great day. We'll talk soon. Take care.